So how does Sparkle work? Let's get into the meat and potatoes now. And what we're going to do now is we're going to look at everything to do with the front panel except for this loop and divide and move effect feature and the effects pad. Okay, so let's get into everything that you can do from the front panel. Okay, now I said before that Spark has 16 instruments. Okay, up to 16 instruments can play in your patterns, but we've only got 8 physical pads. So we access our 16 instruments using this 1 to 8, 9 to 16 bank shift button. With it delatched, we're looking at pads 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then we latch the bank shift button and we've got the next 8 instruments, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Okay, now notice that one of the pads is lit with the white LED. This is the currently selected pad, which is pad number 1, which happens to have a kick drum on it. Okay, now it's important to understand this. Whichever is the currently selected pad that's lit, the currently selected instrument, then the other parts of Spark are assigned to that pad or instrument. Okay, so whichever is the selected instrument pad, the sequencer, the channel strip and the instrument select knob here are assigned to that pad. This is the instrument bit all down here, these pots and the pads. Okay, so let's look at the first feature available to the currently selected pad, the TR sequencer along the top. Now this TR sequencer has 16 physical buttons, each one represents a step or beat in your pattern that you're on. We're in pattern Bank D, pattern number 16. Okay, now although the TR sequencer display across the top here only has 16 physical buttons representing steps or beats in your pattern, patterns can be up to 64 steps or beats in length. And we can change the length of patterns from the front panel. So what you do is you hold down select, and we'll use this select button a lot because it's like a shift button, right? Hold down select and then this pair of arrow keys below the TR sequence display, we use those to change the length of our pattern. So hold down select and use the arrow keys. Now the shortest that a pattern can be is 8 steps, half a TR sequence. Then up from there it can be 16 steps, 1 full cycle of the TR sequence, 24 steps, 1.5 cycles, 32 steps, 2 full cycles, 40 steps, 1, 2.5 cycles, 48 steps, 1, 2, 3 full cycles, 56 steps, 3.5 cycles, or 64 steps, 4 full cycles of 16. Now if I put my pattern to be 32 steps in length, okay, and I come out of pattern length edit mode. Now pattern 16 in Bank D is 32 steps in length, and once I'm out of pattern length edit mode I use the arrows to step up and down to show the different cycles of 16 that are in my pattern, and the current pattern is 32 steps in length, 2 cycles of the TR. So I use the arrows to look at steps 1 to 16 and then steps 17 to 32 of my pattern. Okay, but I'll use the pattern length edit by select and then the arrows to put my pattern back to 16 steps in length. There we are. So pattern 16 in Bank D is now 16 steps in length, 1 cycle of the TR sequencer. Okay, so this is the current selected instrument or pad, the kick drum. So I simply then drop in notes where I want them to play in the pattern for the currently selected instrument on the TR display by lighting the buttons. So I've put in this instrument, a kick drum, on 1, 5, 9 and 13 in my pattern, and I've got a 4 on the floor. Now I can do this while it's running, drop notes in, drop notes out, whatever. Okay, so then I want to put in a different instrument. Hi-hat, select the hi-hat pad, put in the hi-hat. Okay, now every time I light one of these buttons it's putting a hi-hat note at the position I drop the button in for the currently selected pad, and when I drop in a note it has a velocity of 64 by default, but you can change that in the preferences. Okay, now we've put in a hi-hat. Okay, what's this? Tom pad, select the tom. Now that's the selected pad, I can put in a tom pattern. There you go, 3 instruments into my pattern. Alright, that's one way of getting instrument notes into your pattern using the TR display. Okay, now the other way to get notes into your pattern is to do live real-time recording. Let's zoom out again. Live real-time recording. So before we do that, let's get rid of what I just put in to the pattern using the TR technique of dropping the buttons for the selected instrument. Let's start by showing you how to erase all the notes for an instrument pad in the pattern. Okay, Spark remembers I'm in bank D, pattern 16, so I latch the erase button here, press pad 8, which is the tom, and it deletes pad 8 from the pattern. No more tom now, just hi-hat and kick. Okay, that's how to erase a pad. It doesn't matter which one's selected and highlighted, you just latch erase and any pad you press will be deleted from the current pattern you're in. Also I can delete the whole pattern. Latch erase, Spark remembers which bank you're in, we're in bank D, so if I press any of these pattern buttons it will delete that pattern in bank D, or I can delete any of the banks, which deletes all the patterns in a bank. Alright, so I can completely delete everything in pattern 16 that I just put in. There we are, erasing pattern D16, and now the pattern's empty. Okay, alright, that's how to delete a pattern, a bank, or an individual pad from a pattern. Next way to put notes in is real-time recording. You latch record, hit play, and then bash on the pads. Any pads that you play get recorded at the velocity you play them at. Okay, and it doesn't matter which pad is highlighted now, because any pads you play get recorded. I'm going to select pad 1 again just to keep visual order. It's got nothing to do with which pads I play. Okay, so you hit record, hit play, bash on the pads, but hang on, we've got no metronome. No worries. Oops, keep still camera. Hold down select and use the tap tempo button to turn metronome on and off. So the metronome is now on. Okay, we've got metronome. Now we can set the tempo, which I can do with the tap tempo button or the tempo knob. Okay, so I'll set my tempo to 124 beats. There we are. We've got metronome on and we're ready to record. Now when I play on the pads in record mode, anything I play, any pads I play get recorded at the velocity I play them, and Spark will quantize on the fly automatically as I play. It quantizes the notes. But you can turn that off. Hold down select and press the record button. Quantize record off, quantize record on. So I'm going to leave quantize on, but bear in mind that you can record patterns in real time without quantize to keep human feel if you want. Okay, so we're ready to go. Doesn't matter which pad is highlighted because any pads I play get recorded. Hit record, hit play, and play along. There you go, I've recorded 3 pads. Kick, hat, tom. Now, currently the number 1 instrument slot pad, the kick, is highlighted and selected, so we're looking at the pattern I played in for that pad. If I want to see what I played in on the hi-hat, I select the hi-hat pad. That's what I played in the hi-hat with the hi-hat, and now I can take notes out, put notes in, edit. Tom pad, if I want to see what I recorded for that, I select it. Now it's the selected pad and I can see what I played in for the tom, and again edit, drop notes in and out, whatever I like. Okay, so that's 2 different ways to record. Let me turn the metronome off. Okay, 2 different ways to record. Okay, now I'm going to show you another erase technique while we're in real-time recording, which is the old-fashioned traditional way of erasing notes when you're using a drum machine, which is called record erase. And the way this works is you are in record, and then you can latch the erase button, and any pad that you press on, as you press on it, it sends a delete command into the sequencer, which is in record, knocking out the notes for the pad you're holding down. As soon as you stop holding down the pad, it stops sending the delete command, and any notes from the point you lift your finger off don't get erased. So you press down on the pad at any point you want to erase what you are hearing. So I'll erase the tom pad, this one, and I'm going to erase the tom from here to here by holding down on the pad here and letting go here. Here we go. and I'll slow down for this, the tempo. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Erase. Stop erasing. Right, I left number 5. I left the 5th beat in. Here we go. I'm going to knock it out. Oh, missed. Missed. Got it. Okay, now the way you'd normally use this record erase is when you're recording in real time, working on a pattern for an instrument. You're in record. Let me knock out all the tom notes. You're in record, recording your tom pattern. So you go, here we go, I'm going to record my tom pattern. Oh, that didn't go well. Latch erase, hold down the tom and it erases everything you recorded for that pad. Everything's gone, unlatch erase, carry on recording. Okay, not bad, but I want to get rid of this last bit. Latch erase. Now I've knocked out the last notes. Out of erase mode, I can put in different notes there now. Yeah. Latch erase, erase, stop erasing. I've knocked out the middle notes now. Put them back in. Don't like it. Latch erase, erase everything. Unlatch erase, play again. Yeah, so that's how you'd normally use record erase. As you're recording a pad, you don't know what you did, latch erase, hold the pad down, it deletes the notes you want while you're holding down, then start again. And you never have to go out of record. Okay? That's record erase. Okay, a couple of other things to do with the sequencer. Let's go back and select the kick drum. There's the notes in the pattern for the kick drum. This pad. We have this accent button. You latch it and then all the lights for the currently selected instrument go out, and we're now putting in accents. So this works slightly differently to a traditional TR accent button, right? With a traditional TR accent button, you latch the accent master button and put in an accent. For example, on the first beat of the bar, like I've done. Now with a traditional TR sequencer, if I put an accent on the first beat of the bar, then any instrument that plays on that beat in the pattern will receive an accent. But Spark gives you accent per instrument, so when I put in an accent, or put in accents now, I'm only putting them in for the kick drum, this pad here. Not for any of the other pads. Look, no accent, okay? Accent. So accent in Spark sequencer is per instrument, okay? We've got a shuffle control here to add swing, okay? I've shown you how to delete a bank, how to delete a pattern, how to delete by just pressing a pad in delete mode to delete all the notes for that pad or instrument from the pattern, and I've shown you how to do record erase. Okay, let's show you how to copy a pattern now. Pattern 16 is this, D16. Pattern D15 is this. So I'm going to copy pattern D16 to pattern D15. Okay. Now, it doesn't matter which pattern selected, but Spark remembers which bank you're in. We're in bank D. So we use the erase button to go into copy mode, but while holding down select. So we hold down select and press erase, and we're into copy mode. Spark remembers which bank you're in, so I copy pattern 16, D16, then paste it to any other pattern, and it will paste it into that pattern. So I'm going to paste it into D15. There we go, and now I've copied pattern D16 to D15. This is D16, and this is D15. Copied. Okay. Unfortunately, you cannot copy pads, one pad to another. So, for example, you can't copy the sound on this pad to any other pad from the front panel. You can do that in the software. You just drag the pad and drop it on another pad, and it copies the sound. But as of the current software, the version we're on, 1.61, you can't copy pads, only patterns. Or you can copy a bank, select, erase. If I press bank, any of the banks, it will copy all the patterns in that bank, and then the next bank button I press, it will paste the patterns from the copied bank into that bank. So you can copy banks as well. Okay. Okay, now there's one last thing I want to show you about the sequencer, and it's called tune mode. Okay, tune mode, and it's a fantastic feature. Tune mode allows you to play any instrument as a melodic instrument. In other words, you can play patterns with notes, bass lines, synth lines, tuned drum patterns, anything you like, all from one instrument pad, and that's called tune mode. Okay, so I'll show you that now. Let's find a sound to do it with. Okay, there's a synth sound. So we're going to use this for tune mode. So we need to select that instrument. So we hold down select, select the instrument. Okay, so instrument number 13, pad number 13 is now the selected instrument, because tune mode always works on the selected instrument. Okay, so we select our instrument, and now we're ready to go into tune mode. And you hold down select and you latch button 13. Normally unlucky, but in this case it's very lucky because it gets us into tune mode. So select, button 13 on the TR sequence. Tune mode is now on for the selected instrument here. Okay, now what happens is in tune mode the 16 TR buttons along the top and the pads along the bottom become piano keys. Okay, the middle button here, button number 9, is the original pitch of the pad. Okay, and we have 16 semitones. Up here. And we've also got 16 semitones on the pads, but of course there's only 8 physical pads. So the way it works is, when you're in tune mode, this 1 to 8, 9 to 16 bank shift button allows us to switch the pads between the two sets of 8 semitones. Okay, so with it delatch we get the first 8 semitones working up from the bottom, which match the first 8 here. Then we latch the button and we get the next 8 semitones, which match the next 8 here. Okay, so we can play our pattern from here or here, and the only difference is the pads give off velocity information, the buttons don't. Okay. Now, there's another thing. I want to play in my pattern. What if the top note on my semitone buttons or my semitone pads isn't high enough to play the pattern I want? Or what if the lowest note isn't low enough to play the pattern I want? Well, there's another feature in tune mode, which is that when you're in tune mode, the alfoil here acts as an offset tuner for your keys. These are now piano keys, right? These are now piano keys. This becomes an offset tuner, so I can offset tune my keyboard up or down. So I want to tune up to get a higher pitch. Okay, that now gives me the pitch I want. Okay, so I've retuned the range of my piano keys, so to speak, and now I just need to work out the pattern. That's the pattern I want to play. Or I could play it up here. But I'm going to play it on the pads because I get velocity information. Okay, so I'm ready to play in my pattern, and all I do is hit record, hit play, and play in and record my pattern. Hang on though, one thing, is the tempo is quite fast. And I'll tell you, to be honest, when you're trying to play in a melodic pattern using these little buttons up here, you've got to be very accurate, and it's difficult if the song tempo is fast. Down here it's a bit easier, but you often have to make these big jumps between pads to achieve the pattern you're trying to play. And again, whatever, it's difficult sometimes to play in at a fast tempo. So here's a tip for beginners, and people who've been using equipment for years and years and years use this technique all the time. If you're ever trying to play something in and you're having trouble at the speed of the song, you're struggling to play it, slow the tempo down. You can slow the tempo down to a nice slow speed, easy to play at, and then speed it back up after you finish playing. It doesn't change the pitch of what you've played. Okay. Alright, so we've got a nice easy tempo, we know the pattern, and I can now record it in. Here we go, record, play. 1, 2, 3, 4. And I've recorded in my pattern. And when I hit stop, we see these notes, or these buttons, are lit. This shows us the position of the notes that I just played in terms of their position along the sequence, along the pattern. Okay, it doesn't give us the note information in terms of the pitch, but it shows where the notes are in the pattern. And that's it, I've recorded in my pattern. Now I can speed it back up to the right tempo. Okay, I'll just slow it down for what I'm going to show you next. Okay, now if I wanted to then edit and mess around with the notes I've put in, I can't do it at the moment because we're still in tune mode, and if I try and turn this note off by delighting it, it's still a piano key. Okay, so I have to come out of edit tune mode, so I select button 13, tune mode is now off, and now I can take notes out and put them back in like that, in the normal way. And what I've noticed is there's a quirk, which is not documented anywhere, but I've discovered this. This is the pattern. Da 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 da. If I take that note out, I can hear the pattern without it. But if I put it back in, it remembers the pitch. Okay. The other thing I've noticed is, and again this is not documented, if you take this out and move it further back in time along the sequence, it will remember the pitch. So if I take it out of its original position there and move it to here, say, it will remember the pitch. So if I move it further back along the sequence from its original position, it remembers the pitch. I can put it back to the original position and it remembers the pitch. But if I start to bring it forward from its original position, when it gets near to this note, it'll take the pitch from this note. So if I take it out and put it there, it'll now take the pitch from that note. Put it back to its original position, it remembers the pitch it was at when it was at position 13. So you can fiddle a little bit in terms of moving the notes around or alter your pattern. You can move this note to here and it'll keep the pitch that it had there, and put an extra note in here and it'll take the pitch from that one, like this. Yeah, so there's some limited moving of notes you can do, or adding notes or taking away. But what you can't do once you've played in these pitched patterns is you cannot edit the individual note pitches in the pattern you've just played in. Not from the front panel. You can do that in the software by using the mouse and simply changing the pitch of any note you played in by dragging the pitch up and down on the controller lane, okay? But from the front panel you can't change the pitch of notes, okay? But that is tune mode. There you go, tune mode. So let me delete that synth now. Erase pad 13. No more synth. What we got now is the kick and the hi-hat again. Kick, hi-hat. Okay, that's the sequencer. I think I've covered everything for that. Yes, you have shuffle to add swing. We showed the accent. Yeah, that's the lot. Okay, now continuing with this theme of the currently selected pad, the TR display shows the notes in the pattern for the selected pad or instrument, and this channel strip is assigned to the selected instrument. This is a channel strip. It has volume pad, 2 master auxiliary sends, because Spark's mixer has got 2 master auxiliaries that any of the 16 instruments can send to, and a cutoff and resonance for general EQ purposes. So it's a channel strip and it's assigned to the currently selected pad. So now I can adjust, for example, this selected pad, the kick, in my mix. Adjust its volume, its pan position. I can add auxiliary 2 effect to it, which is a delay. I can add auxiliary 1 effect to it, master auxiliary 1 effect, yeah, which is a reverb. And I can tonally adjust my kick, make it softer, boxier, clickier, you know, whatever I want. Okay, if I want to adjust using the channel strip the general mix parameters of another sound, I choose a different sound, the hi-hat. Now I can use the channel strip on this selected pad, the hi-hat. Volume, adjust the pan, add auxiliary 2 effect, delay, add auxiliary 1 effect to reverb, or make my hi-hat thinner or trashier, you know, whatever I like. Okay, so the channel strip is assigned to the currently selected pad. I'll just turn that hi-hat down a tad. There we go. Okay, that's the channel strip. Next thing to look at, let's look at these 3 pots quickly that live above each pad. Now we'll look at these in more detail when we do the screen capture and look at the software next, but basically there are 3 pots that live above every pad, and they're dedicated to the pad they live above. So these 3 pots are for pad 1, these 3 pots are for pad 8, switch to the next bank 9 to 16, these 3 pots are for pad 9, these 3 pots are for pad 10, these 3 pots are for pad 16, etc. Okay? Now, by default, these 3 pots, the top one is pitch, the middle one is frequency content, and the bottom one is decay by default, but they can be changed and assigned to any edit parameter for the instrument they live above. Okay? So every instrument in a slot or in a pad, whether it's a physical model, an analog model or a sample, it has a bunch of edit parameters: cut off, pitch, envelope decay, frequency decay or filter decay or whatever, blah blah blah. It's got all these edit parameters, and any of those edit parameters can be assigned to these 3 pots. Additionally, every single instrument has a filter living over its slot, which can be band pass, high pass, low pass, or whatever, and any of the parameters of the filter can be assigned to these pots. And additionally, any instrument in Spark, they all have their own channel on the Spark mixer, and every one of their channels can have up to 2 insert effects on, so each instrument can have up to 2 unique insert effects added. And any of those insert effect parameters can also be assigned to these pots, so they're quite powerful. They write data to the sequencer, or you can use them to tweak and do live effects. Okay, now we won't get into this in great detail now. We'll look at the parameters that can be assigned to these pots when we look at the software, but just to tell you, you can change the parameter from the front panel for any of the pots. You hold down select and move the pot, and the default parameter for the top pot here is pitch. Then you can choose attack, decay, frequency shift, shift rate, shift range, cutoff, resonance, master auxiliary send 1, master auxiliary send 2, pan or volume. And then if there's any effects, you can also assign any of the effect parameters to the pot. Okay, so you can edit the pots from the front panel by holding down select and scrolling through the possible things that can be assigned to them. Okay, alrighty, that's those 3 pots. The next thing I want to show you, and this is super cool, man, is the mute and solo buttons. And these are a real powerhouse for live work and for when you're working on your linear compositions. To show you this, I want to switch to a factory pattern. Bank A, oops, get off, bit of fluff. Bank A, pattern 1, which is this. Okay, now this is a factory pattern. Let's look at mute and solo now. I'll tell you, these are amazing. Mute. You latch it, and then any pad that you light up becomes muted. Okay, so yeah, you can use the mute in the traditional way, latch the mute button, and then mute whatever you like. I can mute the kick and whatever else. Bring it back in, drop it out, drop things out, you know. Okay, so you can use it in that way, but the power of the mute button works like this. When you use it as a mute group master. Check this out. I unlatch mute, remute. I'll put the first 8 pads into mute. Okay? All the first 8 instruments are muted, but the next 8, 9, 16 are not. So with all the first 8 instruments in the pattern muted, it sounds like this. Okay, I've dropped out most of the beat instruments and left just a couple of things playing. But check this out, when I unlatch mute and re-latch it, it remembers everything in my mute group. So I now have a mute group master, allowing me to drop out a whole chunk of my instrumentation from the pattern to do mix and dub effects like this. Yeah, fantastic, huh? Very, very powerful. But it gets better. We have a solo button. Latch the solo button, and then any pad that you light becomes soloed. So I can solo just one pad, use the solo in the traditional way, solo this instrument here, work on it, tweak its sound, and when I've got the sound how I want it, drop it out of solo back into the whole mix. But again, you can use it in the traditional way, the solo, but the power of the solo button is when you use it as a solo group. Check this out. I latch my solo, and I'll solo these 4 pads. Okay, now when I drop the master solo button in and out, it remembers what's in my solo group. So with my solo button latch, these 4 pads get soloed and everything else drops out, which sounds like this. Okay, these 4 pads are my raw beat, kick, and a couple of toms and a hat. Yeah, brilliant. So I can now use the solo button to dub in an alternative set of instruments like this. Fantastic, huh? But check this out, it even gets better. If either mute or solo is latched, when you latch the other one, they switch automatically. Which means you can do this. Whoops. Yeah, you get fantastic mix power. Using the mute and solo as groups, mute group and solo group buttons, I can have 3 alternative mix states of instrumentation for just one pattern. I've got everything playing, I've got the mute group with only the pads not muted playing, and I've got the solo group with only the solo pads playing, and I can switch between those 3 states in my mix. And do all that just on one pattern before I even start changing patterns. So the mute and solo are incredibly powerful, but they really come into their power use when you use them as a mute group and a solo group button. Okay, that's mute and solo. Right, what else we got? Well, that leaves one last thing, this big old alpha rotary here. Okay, now I want to show you something here. This alpha rotary is a wheel that you can turn in either direction. It's also a button you can press on. It has 2 different modes: instrument mode, the primary mode, and kit mode, the secondary mode. Well, secondary mode is kit or project. Okay. So to change the mode of this wheel, you press on it as a button and hold down for a second. And it says jog mode project, which is the secondary mode. Hold it down for a second. Jog mode instrument. Now that's the primary mode, instrument mode for this wheel, and Spark boots with this wheel in instrument mode. Now it's back to this theme of the currently selected pad again. The currently selected pad, the TR display shows the notes in the pattern for the pad, the channel strip is assigned to the selected pad, and the instrument wheel is assigned to the selected pad. And this wheel allows us to scroll around and choose a different sound to load a different instrument into the currently selected pad. Okay, now watch this. Let me zoom in. Look at the screen. I knock the wheel left or right to go into edit mode, and the display says change bass drum, because the currently selected pad that we're changing the instrument for is a bass drum category pad. It's got a bass drum in it already. Spark remembers that this pad is in the bass drum category. So when I go to change the instrument for the selected pad, I'm not scrolling around the thousands of sounds in the Spark library looking desperately for bass drums. I'm only scrolling through bass drums. Choose a bass drum, click on the button to load it, and I'm just loading bass drums. Bass drum category instruments. Okay. Cleverer, Spark remembers the category of a pad, so that when you scroll around, you're only scrolling around that type of category instrument. Saves you scrolling through thousands of different sounds. Okay. But we can change the category of a pad any time from the front panel. You can do it in the software, but you can do it from the front panel as well. I want you to check something out here. When I knock the instrument wheel to go into edit mode, it says change bass drum, the current category of the pad. Change bass drum, click to confirm, meaning click on the wheel once to confirm that you want to change to the new sound you've scrolled to. And if you don't do anything, it says change bass drum cancelled, and it drops out of edit. So you put it into edit, knocking the wheel in either direction, change bass drum, click to confirm. If you don't do anything, after about 5 seconds it drops out of edit mode. Change bass drum cancelled. So the way we change the category of a pad is like this. We knock the wheel to go into edit mode. While it's in edit mode, we hold down select, we double click on the wheel twice. That puts us into the category mode. We're now changing the category for the selected pad. Okay, now it was on the category bass drum. So I can now choose a different category for the pad. I can choose snare drum, category, closed hat, open hat, high tom, mid tom, low tom, crash, clap, rim shot, ride, cymbal, percussion, effects, synth. And if I want, I can put the pad into the all category. If I put the pad into the all category, then yes, when I scroll the instrument select wheel to change the sound for this pad, I can scroll through every sound in my Spark library. You can, if you want, put a pad into that category. But it's probably sort of more sensible to keep pads in a category. So it was in bass drum category, I'm going to change it to snare drum category. So I choose snare drum and click on this wheel once as a button. Now I can choose the subcategory of snare drum, because I've put this pad into snare drum category now. Now I can choose the subcategory of snare drum. All snare drums, only analog snare drums, only physical modelled snare drums, or sampled snare drums, or all snare drums. So I'm going to choose only sampled snare drums. Click. Now this pad has been put into the category snare and into the subcategory sample snares. Now when I rotate round to change the sound for this pad, I'm scrolling through only sampled snare drums. But there is a bug, and the bug is that I've just changed the category of this pad from bass drum to snare, but until I install my first new category instrument, in other words my new snare instrument, because I've changed this pad to the snare category, until I've installed my first new category instrument, when I go to change the instrument using the instrument select wheel here, it still says change the old category, look, change bass drum, but I am now scrolling through snares and only sample snares. So I choose a snare, and once I've put in one of the new category instruments, then when I scroll it changes and says change snare drum. It's a slight bug, but it doesn't affect how it works. So now I'm just scrolling and loading sample only snare drums. Scroll, choose one, click to load it. Come on. Etc. Now if I want to, I can keep a pad in the primary category it's in, and this pad is in snare category, but I can change just the subcategory. Now at the moment this pad is in snare category, but when we scroll, we're only scrolling around the subcategory of sampled snares. But I can change the subcategory while leaving it in the snare category. I simply knock the wheel to go into edit mode, hold down select and click on this wheel as a button but once. And now I'm changing the subcategory. We're still in snare, but we can now choose all snares, analog snares, physical model snares or sampled snares. So I'll choose now physical model snares only. Click. Now I've changed the subcategory. So now this pad is in snare category, and when I rotate the instrument wheel to change the instrument for this pad, I'm only scrolling through physical modelled snares. They take a little bit longer to load sometimes. Physical model snares now. I'm scrolling and loading those. Okay, it's that simple, right? So let's put this pad now into synth category, let's say. Knock the wheel, hold down select, double click. Change the category to synth, synth, come on. Click once, choose all synth, analog synths or sample synths. I don't have any physical model synths in my library, otherwise they would be listed in the subcategory. So I'll choose all synths, and now I'm scrolling around synths. Again, there's that bug where it shows the previous category until I install my first new category instrument. So it says change snare drum, but we are now in synth category for this pad, and I can load synths. etc. Okay, let's put the pad back into bass drum category now, knock the wheel, select, double click, change the category back to, where are we? Bass drum, there we are. Whoop, bass drum, click once, all bass drums, click once, and now this pad is back in bass drum category and I can put a bass drum in. Okay, let me put in that UV, I want to put in the Ultimate Tech House kick drum, bass drum 1, there we go. And now, yeah, I've put it back in bass drum category, yeah, brilliant, huh? So that's the primary mode of this wheel, changing the instrument or the category or the subcategory for the highlighted and selected pad. That's its primary mode, this wheel. In its secondary mode, it's in kit or project mode. Okay, by default it's kit, but you can change the secondary mode to be kit or project in the preferences. To change the wheel to its secondary mode, you click and hold down on it for a second. Jog mode project, because I've changed the preferences so that my secondary mode for this wheel is not kit but project. Now this wheel in its secondary mode, if you've got the Spark set to the default so that secondary mode is kit, then when you're in the secondary mode you're scrolling around kits. You scroll and select a kit, click to load it, and it loads the kit into Spark but leaves all the patterns in the sequencer, so they don't get changed. That way you can audition new kits being played by the patterns in the sequencer, but the patterns stay where they are. If you change the preferences so the secondary mode for this wheel is project, like I've done, then when you scroll in secondary mode you're scrolling around projects. Choose a project, click to load it, and it loads the complete kit and all the patterns associated with that kit. Okay, so the hierarchy in Spark is projects at the top, which is a kit and all the patterns that go with it. Below that is kits, and below that is instruments. Okay, so instruments at the bottom, they make up the kits, and the kits belong to a project with all the patterns. Projects, kits, instruments. Okay, well that is your lot. It takes longer than you think, doesn't it? Because there's a lot to look at. But I've shown you pretty much everything. There are a couple of other functions you can do using select menu items, like when we did select and latched button 13 to get tune mode. These buttons here, 9 to or 8 to 12, somewhere around here, just check the manual, but holding down select and using these buttons, or 3 of these buttons, accesses other features like save, undo, redo, but you can look in the manual for that. And also some of the buttons up here when holding select access things on the software. If you're looking at the software on your screen, you can use select and these buttons to switch the Spark software from showing the sequencer to the drum machine to the whatever part of the Spark, you know. So there are additional menu functions you can access with these buttons using select, but that's really, you know, academic. It's stuff you can learn from the manual. But there you go, that's how you use the front panel. A lot of power, huh? And remember, all the pots write control data. Okay. We'll look at this loop divide and move thing, which is an effect thing. We'll look at that later, and we'll look at the effect pad later. Okay. But that's your lot for the front panel at version 1.61 of the software. Okay. That's all I've discovered so far. I don't think I've missed anything. So there you go. That's the front panel. Let's move on now and look at Spark in some more detail with the screen capture software. Look at the actual software itself, and we can see all sorts of things like the edit parameters for an instrument, how to set up samples and blah blah blah. Okay, so let's get into it on a bit of a deeper level by looking at the software.